Okay, we're getting ready to get started here. All right. As you can see, this is the Valley of Dry Bones, the podcast. All right. So the question first we will be asking is, or the statement that I will be making is, the price of truth should not be death. Right? Because we have an organization, right, of religion, of wickedness, right, of trick knowledge, and they will do anything in their power to control the masses with this trick knowledge, this magic trick of the mind, right? So let's drop this background here. Hold on a minute. That was a Cat Williams thing there. Let me bring up my other page here. So first, right, for the watching eyes, I got this little reggae song called Tenement Yard. So I just put the lyrics up. Right, I'm not gonna sing it to you, but here go the lyrics, right? Oh, oh, oh. Hear them say, ah, ah, ah. Dreadlocks can't live in a tenement. Dreadlocks can't live in a tenement yard. Why? Too much su, su, su. Too much watchy, watchy, yo. Too much su, 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 su. Too much watch what you are. Dreadlocks can't live in a tenement yard, right? Too much watchy what you are. Dreadlocks can't live in privacy. Anything him do, old niggas see. Too much watchy watchy. Too much su su su. Dreadlocks can't smoke his pipe in peace. Too much informers, too much fears. Right? So I just, I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I just wanted to give you the gist of this system, right? It's hard to really expose it because you are right around the type of people who will do anything to sustain the lie. Some might not even know, you know what I'm saying? Where there's others who are fully aware of what they are doing, right? So we will be, as we go on, you will understand that song. Look it up. It's Jacob Miller, and the song is called Tenement Yard. It's an old reggae roots and culture song, right? I'll be pulling up more, but apparently that one sent a trigger to those who watch. You know what I'm saying? Those who sit there and watch you and monitor you all day, right? That's their job, to, I don't know, to what extent it is, you know what I mean? But that's their job. Anyway, let's get into this, right? You have philosophers, shepherds of man and beast, right? A philosopher is a shepherd of man and beast. When I say beast, I mean, the criminal element and those type of things, right? So we're going to go right here, and this is from the Bible. This is the Valley of Dry Bones, right? And this is actually where I derived my show name from, right? It goes, the hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out of the spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of a valley. It was full of bones. He led me back and forth. Pay attention to that. That's very important, right? Among them. And I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley. Bones that were very dry. He asked me, son of man, can these bones live? I said, Sovereign Lord, you only know. Then he said to me, prophesy on these bones and say to them, dry bones, hear the words of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says to these bones. I will make breath into you, and you will come to life. I will stretch tendons, I will attach tendons to you and make flesh come upon you and cover you with skin. I will put breath in you and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord. So I prophesied as I commanded, and as I was prophesizing, there was a noise, a rattling sound, and the bones came together, bone to bone. I looked, and tendons and flesh appeared on them, and the skin covered them, but there was no breath in them. Then the Lord said to me, prophesy to the breath, prophesy, son of man, and say to it, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Come breathe from the four winds and breathe into the slain, that they may live. So I prophesied as he commanded me, and breath into them, and they came to life and stood upon their feet, a vast army. Then he said to me, son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say our bones are dried, but wait, our bones are dried up and our hopes are gone. We are cut off. Therefore prophesy and say to them, this is what the sovereign Lord says. My people, I'm going to open your graves and bring you up from them. I will bring you back to the land of Israel. Then you, my people, will know that I am the Lord. When I open your graves and bring you up from them, I will put my spirit in you, and you will live, and I will settle you in your own land. Then you will know that the Lord has spoken, and I have done it, declares the Lord. Right? So, you know, when we go down here, we'll see. Well, I didn't put it in there yet. So we got sovereign, right? And we know we'll be covering sovereign and showing that this is no mystical thing. This is a king, right? Who is sending out a certain, message to the people who have been under a certain situation. And, these words will be put into these people who have been in despair, and they will unite as an army, right, to fight the system. So this is just a walkthrough on, like when we hear the Tower of Babel, when God came down and broke up the languages, right? So this would be like kind of in that reference, but in reverse. Now it's taking all of these people and bringing them back together to form this union, right? So this is the black people right now. The black people are Tom, and the white people are Jerry, pulling off this great scheme, right? Religion, and it's, which is a history, right? This is a history. This book is a history book written in a style that makes it mystical, right? And so, in how this system is profitable in an economic way, right? So you see he's hiding absolutely nothing, right? And we are so engulfed, with that we don't realize we have what we were looking for in our hands, right? So I say again, get a good look at the liar, because while you so busy trying to see what he's hiding, bow, you catch a bad one. You catch a bad one, right? So let's ask this question. What is the difference between symbolic and symbolism, right? Because we know you will always hear, oh, the Bible is written in symbolisms, right? Allegories and these type of things. So in order for us to truly understand what is being said, we would have to understand what these things are and how do they play a part in the structure, right? So we have to cover symbolic and symbolism. A symbol might be an object, a mark, an image, a character, a name, a place. Pretty much anything can serve as a symbol, right? Symbolism is a literary device that uses symbols to imbue meaning in a story. So it's like having a glass, right? The glass would be the symbol, right? What you put in it symbolizes what you want. So it could be water, right? A quenching thing. It could be soda, flavors, and the meaning of what the value of what you're trying to say is the symbolism, the soda or the water or whatever that is put within the symbol, right? So uses symbols to imbue, right? So while it's saying it's using the symbol, in actuality, what is happening is the symbolism is what you're taking in. The symbol is what you're holding. The symbol is the glass. What you're engulfing would be the symbolisms, right? It is a literary device that uses symbols, right, the glass, to imbue meaning in a story, right? So, symbolism in literature is a tool of figurative language where an image, object, idea, or symbol is used to represent something other than its literary literal meaning, right? So we can take the glass and know that a glass is this, but we can also, right, take this symbol and make it represent um the knowledge that people need to hold, right? And so what you put into that knowledge, the drink or whatever, is what you take into yourself. So you see the symbolism is something that a person can identify with subconsciously, right? In most cases, it is a common technique used by writers in both fiction and nonfiction texts to emphasize a theme or make a point about the nature of a story. All right. So we got types of symbolisms, right? We got metaphors, and metaphor is refers to one thing but directly mentioning another, right? You got similes, you got allegories, archetype, personification, irony, monotony, right? And others, right? In order to understand symbolisms in the Bible, you will need to know a handful of subjects, right? Because these subjects are what the symbolisms are referring to, right? So it's a compressed information of outside things but put into a story where all of these symbolisms represent these outside sources. So you need to know two things, well, a few things, So we'll just say too, like as in history and the literary text. So you'll know the literary text, but if you know history and these other fields, you will be able to understand what is actually being said or alluded to, right? But what's happening is this understanding gets lost in translation. How? Through another device. What is this device? Double speak, right? And now, mind you, it's designed like this on purpose, right? So you have double speak. Double speak is a language that deliberately obscures, disguises, distorts, or reverses the meaning of words, right? So this would be um symbolism in a oratorial instead of a written word in an oratorial way. Double speak may take the form of euphemism, right? In which case it is primarily meant to make the truth sound more palatable, right? It may also refer to intentional ambiguity in language or to actually envision of meaning, right? So it's intentionally ambiguous, right? In language. So that means that it's deliberately vague. So it's saying something to you while really saying something bigger to those who understand what he's or her is referencing to. Right. So then we get double talk, right? Means speech that is impossible to understand. Usually a mixture of purposefully unintelligible words and random nonsense syllables. Double talk is used for humorous effects, right? Usually in to mimic a foreign language. However, the term double talks make also I guess it's supposed to be may also be used to describe speech that is used to confuse people, sometimes similar to the meaning double speak. Note that the proper spelling of double talk is with a hyphen, though it may be spelled as two words as a double talk, or the two words may be melded together as a double talk. A word double talk was first used in the word double talk was first used in the 1930s, right? Not to say that it was not around. It's just the description of it was given in the 1930s, right? So we got double speak. It is used euphemistic and or ambiguous language in order to disguise what one is actually saying. So you could be saying one thing and they're assuming that you're saying another, right? Some examples of double speak are the terms put to sleep, used in place of words, replace the word euthanize. In the phase ethnic cleansing, right, instead of the word genocide. Doublespeak was not coined by George Orwell, though his novel 1984 was most probably an influence. Right, doublespeak was first used in the 1950s, probably as a deviation, right, of the term double talk. Right. So then we got double think. Double think is the ability to accept two conflicting beliefs, opinions, or facts as valid and correct simultaneously. Right? The acceptance might be deliberate or unconscious and is often a result of political indoctrination. Doublethink may happen because of someone being willfully preserved or perverse, my fault, and or as a result of faulty logic. Double thinking is a word coined by George Orwell again for the novel 1984. You might want to check that out, right? So, we're going to get into how this system is allowed to maneuver, right? And meaning there's symbolism in language, right? Because we'll be dealing with the symbolism in the literary text, but then we will be now covering it as well in its oral, rituals, right? And how do you get to that? We go to a cant, right? Right. So, carpentry, biblical, right? But this is not what we're going to be focusing on. We're not going to be looking at the first definition, right? Talk typically of a moral, religious, or political nature, right? So, see, now I want you to take in mind that how this will be used in its biblical, right, text, but, right, hypocrisy. So now let's go into language. Peculiar to a specified group or profession and regards with disparagement, thieves can't, right? So you see again, right? We see slang, we see jargon, we see idiom, and we see argot, right? So we see how we should easily identify these two. Slang, right? And, jargon, which is special words used, you know, um, to block certain people out and give other people this authoritative stance, right? So we will be covering those, but we will be also argot, right? Is a very important thing that we will be getting very deeply into, right? Denoting a phrase or catchword temporarily current or in fashion, modified nouns. There are misrepresentation as the cant word of our day, uncaring, right? Denoting a phase or catchword, temporarily current or in fashion, right? So we have third person can't, tense, can't pass, presented, casting, talk, hypocritically and sanctimoniously about something. If they stop canting about honest work, they might get somewhere. Right? And so this together would be like a shorthand, right? That's why I'm mentioning this here, the method of writing rapidly by substituting characters, abbreviations, or symbols, or letters, sounds, words, or phrases, right? So we're taking these cants as a way to speak ambiguously, right, about a subject, right? So we can have a subject that, like say we say the Bible and history. So we have that in shorthand, right? That is these um symbolisms, right? These symbolisms would be the shorthand history, right? And so I just wanted to give you an example. Now, so when we cover in, I wanted to make this, right? So first I just tell you this, right? What is an acronym? is a word formed from the first letters of a series of words. NASA, National Astronauts, Aeronautics and Space Administration, right? So we're going to break down God, right, with acronyms to turn out that God is just an acronym of three groups working together, right? And not necessarily on the best of terms, but both systems, regardless to what all three, in a way, are designed to shift the population, right? Control it, right? So we have God, Gumar Az Dubar, right? Let me see if I can make this larger here real quick for y'all. Um, let's see if all right, I'll just make it to 12. Okay. God would be more of an acronym for three groups working to control the masses. Look at the G and D, right, as a two-headed monster that makes and breaks mighty men. Gumer, right, or Gumar, beauty, the art of seduction, right? So let's take these words and evaluate them individually, right? So we have the name comes from the Hebrew verb gamar, meaning to end, come to an end, complete. As such, the name Gumer likely means completion. Right. And so this is, you can look up these names and you can see in the Bible. Right. In some translations, she is labeled a prostitute, but the more accurate description is that she was simply promiscuous and had extramarital relations. Right? So we see Gomer. So let's look at her. Gomer was the wife of the prophet Hosea, right? Whatever you pronounce his name, but he's a very important name, so you should pay attention to this. In some translations, she is labeled a prostitute, but a more accurate, pardon me here, a more accurate description is that she was simply promiscuous and had extramarital relations, right? Gomer and Hosea relationship in ancient Israelite marriages show how women were ostracized for extramarital sex while such behavior was tolerated if not encouraged by men. So please understand what this message is about, because it's going to play a very vital role in understanding, Freemasonry and, the square and compass and these things that we will be touching on to make it more clearer, right? Ostracize external sex behavior was tolerated if not encouraged by men, paralleling the relationship between Israel and God. Gomer is also never given the ability to speak for herself, but is rather shown as the victim of abuse from both Hosea and God as punishment for her promiscuity. However, controversially analysis of Gomer are based on the traditions of modern gender decommodity. I don't forget me. In interpretations, Gomer's narrative as a familiar lens can also be excruciating. Pardon me here. Let me fix this here. All right. Okay. 1 second. We'll be right with you here. All right. Okay. So now when we look at this symbol, and I did shows on this, right? Hold on, let me make this small some more. I want this to be full sight. All right. Okay. So as we look at this symbol, right, we should see this is the clitoris, right? And this is the vagina, right? So we're going into a system that has, as we know, with the woke community and all of that, we can see the large challenge of, the book. And we hear these arguments. So the Gumir is a very important part of this new system, right? So then we got strength, right? Courage, meaning strength and courage. Oz is a masculine name and of Hebrew origin, meaning strength and courage. It is primarily a nickname derived from Hebrew names such as Ozni and Ozias, right? A baby name meaning origin, right? And so we see once again, right? We have strength. So this would be, we have the prostitute, right? The crime, right? Then we have justifiably, in itself trying to make excuses, right? Then we have the king, right? Or royalty, this system. That's why when we look at Saul in the Bible, right, which I'll be getting into, where it's of these men within the community, Saul was, deemed, these beauties and these attributes, the tallest and these type of things, as being the first king of the Jews, of the Israelites, right? And so with that system, we understand that the G, right, the Gumers and Dubar, which we'll be getting into, actually makes up Oz. That's why it's G and D, and I left out the Oz, and that's why even when you look at whether it's the Jews, when they just add G and D, and, you understand what is actually being referenced to. They're saying that they don't need a king, they can rule the people without one, right? What does the name Oz mean in the Bible? Might, strength, material, right? Noun, masculine, mighty, strength, material or physical, personal or social or political, right? So we see this structure of Oz, right? So we see Oz, right? And so let's study some more Oz so we can see the building, the structure of Oz, of this ruler, right? The tomb of Alexander the Great is attested in several historical accounts, but its current exact locations remain an enduring mystery. Following Alexander's death in Babylon, his body was literally buried in Memphis by one of his generals, Ptolemy I Soter. If I said it wrong, forgive me. Before being transferred to Alexander, where it was reburied. Julius Caesar, Cleopatra, and Augustus, among others, are noted as having visited Alexander's tomb in Alexandria in antiquity. Its later fate is unknown, and it had possibly been destroyed in the 4th and 5th century since, right, the 19th century. Over 100 official attempts have been made to try to identify the site of Alexander's tomb in Alexandria. Now, this is going to play a major part later when, as we get into this whole structure of creating a God, but we're taking the short route, just giving you some points. First, we started off with Alexander, right? The Great. He would be the father in this situation. You got the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, right? In 48 BC, Alexander's tomb in Alexandria was visited by Caesar, right? How were Alexander the Great and Caesar, Julius Caesar, similar? They shared many strengths. Both were renowned for their rare charisma and leader of men. They protagonist genus of military tacticians and strategies. Their fierce bravery as warriors and their single-minded drive in becoming two of the most successful conquerors the world has ever known. Right? So pay attention to that. That's, very important on how we get to this white man's world, right? That saying. So to understand it, we have to do this history, right? At the tender age of 31, Alexander, having predated Caesar by almost 300 years. That 300 years is very important, right? And we will be addressing that, so keep that in mind. Or at least when I refer back to things, we will be knowing what I'm referring to. Like I said, I'm not trying to have a conversation with symbolisms and all of that. I want it to be clear and open, and everybody understands what the references are directed towards. Right? Conquered the great empire the world has ever seen at the time, Persia. Right? So first we see Alexander the Great, doing his thing. Then we go further and we'll see 300 years, the continuation of that through Julius Caesar, right? So then it asks the question, who came first, Jesus or Julius Caesar? Because now we said we're building this system. As I've already made videos, you can go into the link. I'll probably have a link up here where we discuss how the system of Jesus came about, right? And how Julius Caesar would, through Julius Caesar and Augustus, right, this system creating of Jesus was completed, right? Let's say it started with Alexander the Great, and its completion, I would say, was with Julius Caesar, but we can also say Augustus, and I'll show why. Right, but so in 44 BC, Julius Caesar deified, right? We all know what deified means, made a god by the Roman Senate. So in 44 BCE, Julius Caesar was made a god by the Roman Senate, right? 40 years later, in 4 BC, Jesus of Nazareth is born. Huh? So then we have, let's say, 10 years, right? Because this is 6 CE, right? Teretes of Judah, Samaria, and Odium comes under direct imperial control as Roman province of Judea, right? And then we have in 14 CE, Augustus deified by the Roman Senate, right? Then we got 26 to 30 CE, the ministry of John the Baptist comes about, right? So, first we have a completion, then we have this new system. Wait, first we have the takeover, right? This time Julius Caesar with his with the Roman Empire, right? Then we can say the completion, and he was deified for what he done. And then we see again with Augustus, like his stepson, right, nephew or something like that. And so we see this completion, and he would be the Holy Spirit, and we'll be getting into these things. Like I said, I'm not gonna say anything that is gonna be left in its um ambiguous form. We will be making everything clear, right? To make sure, now this is, the death of Julius Caesar, right? And we're gonna line this up with the system that we see unfolding today, which we'll call Satanism, right? Or the satanic system, or whatever it may be, right? To make sure that he was dead, a Roman soldier named an extra biblical tradition as Longius stabbed him in the side. One of the soldiers pierced his side with a lance, and immediately there came out blood and water. Right? So that's the Holy Lance. You can look that up. Right? Now, let's look at, right, how they're saying Caesar was killed, right? A dagger was thrusted at Caesar's throat but missed and only wounded him, right? The second assassin then drove a dagger into his chest as he twisted away from the first assailant, right? Then we got Brutus struck Caesar in the groin, a telling blow perhaps given that his mother, Servilia, once had been Caesar's mistress, right? This is University of Chicago Education, Ideas of March, Death of Caesar, right? Now let's take this death of Caesar and put it next to the death of Hiram Abiff. The legend goes as follows. Hiram Abiff, a widow's son from Tyre, skillfully in the working of all kinds of metals, was employed to help build King Solomon's temple. The legend tells us that one day, whilst worshiping the grand architect of the universe, GAOTA, within the Holy of Holies, right? Hiram was attacked by three ruffians, right? Called Jabulo, and Jabellum, right? And I did a whole thing on this as well. Find the link and add it in the description, right? And known collectively as the Jewels, right? One demanded the master's word, that is the secret name of God, right? The first ruffian named Jubela struck him across the throat with a 24-inch gauge. Strange, right? The second ruffian named Jubelo struck Hiram's breast over the heart with a square. The third ruffian named Jabellum struck Hiram upon the forehead. See the play on words, foreskin, head, with the gavel, whereupon Hiram fell dead. His blood therefore was shed within the temple. Hiram, have been killed, was carried out the east gate of the temple and buried outside Jerusalem on Mount Moriah. Right? So, what does this mean? Why would you take a story of Julius Caesar? As I told you, the story of Julius Caesar was actually the foundation for Jesus Christ, JC, right? So now we have this foundation, but then we have a new empire, the British Empire, right? And so when we hear Hiram and these type of things, understand we're dealing with the British Empire, right? And we know the English, how they say they're the descendants of, the Jews and all that. So we'll understand how this plays a part. But I wanted to point that out, that these two stories are connected, and how they're indoctrinating people into the new system within the lodge, right? Greek hero cults, the making of a god 101. Hero cults were one of the most distinctive features of ancient Greece religion. The Homeric Greek hero refers to the mortal offspring of a human and a god. By the historical period, however, the word came to mean specifically a dead man, varinated and propagated at his tomb, or in a designated shrine. All right, so pay attention to how they're creating this god, right? Because his fame during his life, or his unusual manner of death, gave him power to support and protect the living. A hero was more than a human, but less than a god. And various kinds of supernatural figures came to be assimilated to the class of hero. The distinction between a hero and a god was less than certain, especially in the case of Hercules, the most prominent but atypical hero. Right. So then let's see Harun. Right. So we see Harun, buried in a shallow grave. Harun. Right. Ancient Greece, Romanized. Right. Also Latinized as Herum, is a shrine dedicated to an ancient Greek or Roman hero, and is used for the commemoration or cult worship of the hero. They were often erected over his or her supposed tomb, right? Or cantopy. They were erected from the time of the Archean Greece to the Augustan Roman period, right? So you see how all the way up to the Augustan period, right? And I told you this would be like the completion of this Jesus scenario, right? So once they completed that, they basically put all of that under one system. And this is why you say the one true and living God, right? And then as far, so then let's check out the Temple of Caesar, right? The Temple of Caesar, or Temple of Divius Iulius, right? What does that mean? Also known as the Temple of the deified Julius Caesar. Then we see Harun there, or Temple of the Comet Star. So when we see Comet Star, we also understand as above, as below. And that will take on a way larger context. But for now, we'll leave that as what it stands. But it's actually a lot larger than just a star as above and below. The stars told a story, right? And that was given to them, right? And so that story was brought down into, like this physical state, right? Or Temple of the Common Star is an ancient structure in the Roman Forum of Rome, Italy, located near the Regia in the Temple of Vestia, right? So then I asked the question. These are the things, as to find out um this comparison, we have to line up this history of, right? So the question would be, did Jesus use the Julian calendar? The Julian calendar is the one that was introduced in the year 46 BC, right? And this calendar plays a part with above and below. So I had to put this in there because it's going to play a major part in this, right? So, where we at here? On the wrong, by Julius Caesar to all of the Roman Empire, right? And it is the calendar that is used during the life of Jesus Christ in the time of the early church, at the time of the early church, right? So, we got that, right? So now let's go, and again, we're going to go as above. Caesar's comet, Julius Star, right? Star of Caesar, comet of Caesar, the great comet of 44 BC. Numeral designation, right, was a 7-day commentary outburst seen on July 44th BC and was interpreted by Romans as a sign of the deification and recently assassinated dictator Julius Caesar. 100 to 44 BC. It was perhaps the most famous comet of antiquity. All right. So we'll be, we'll go back into that, but these are just the topics that I wanted to bring up, right? I wanted to make it known. So even if you decide to go, stop these things and do your own research on them, you can, right? So, Temple of Augustus Pula. The Temple of Augustus, right, is a well-preserved Roman temple in the city of Pula, Corinthia, known in the Roman times, right, dedicated to the first Roman Empire Emperor Augustus. It was probably built during the emperor's lifetime at some point between 27 BC and his death in AD 14, right? It was built on a podium in the Trestal proto-style porch of Corinthian columns and measured about 8 by 17.3 meters, 26 by 57 feet, right? And 14 meters, 16 feet high. A richly decorated frieze is similar to that of somewhat large and more recent temples, the Mission Curie and Nimes, France. These two temples are considered the two best complete Roman monuments outside Italy, right? So we'll be getting into this and explaining the Trinity and how um Augustus basically stole the female energy, right? And you know how they say, like, Christianity is gay because where's the woman at? Well, Augustus took that slot, right? And so we'll be getting into that and proving that as well, right? The Roman Empire was founded when Augustus Caesar proclaimed himself the first emperor of Rome in 31 BC and came to an end with the fall of the Constantinople in 1453 CE, right? So again, we see July, and that would be Julius Caesar, and we see August, which is Augustus, right? So we see these two systems, right? These two names. We see them deified, right? We see them put on the calendar, right? And so this will make sense as we go on. When we really break down the calendar again, I think I did a show on it. I know I did a show where I mentioned it, so I'll probably put that link there, but I'll focus more on the calendar in a later on, right? So the word Debar, right? Because now we went through, Gumar and we went through Oz. So now let's touch on Debar, right? Means word, talk, or thing in Hebrew. Debar occurs in various contexts in the Hebrew Bible. The Hebrew Bible page, right, 10th century, the Septuagint, the oldest translation of the Hebrew Bible into Greek, uses the term Rema or logos as equivalent to the use both for the bar, right? And we'll be touching on that because this, like, the bar would be the philosophers, right? So the philosophers are those in search of truth, right? And Gomar, as we see, are the liars, right? So we have the prostitute, the criminals, and then we have the bars, like, the righteous, right? Every person does not have hers or her own philosophy, right? Philosophy is not simply a theory about something, nor is philosophy a belief or a wish. Philosophy is an activity, a quest after wisdom, right? And so with this activity, right, it's the movement of people, right? With the thought, this thought spread out and is allowed to dictate the pulse of the people, right? So then we go into Socrates. According to two sources, Socrates is considered by many to be the founding father of Western philosophy. The way you think and see things today, he's considered the person who created the world that you live in, as well as one of the most enigmatic figures of ancient history. He wrote nothing himself, so all knowledge of the Greek philosopher has been handed down through the writings of his contemporaries and his students, primarily his star pupil, Plato. Right? So as we read Plato, and we'll go through the different dialogues that he had, and from that we will understand how they created Jesus, right? So then we got, Plato. Now this is a video on YouTube, right? And then put I wanted y'all to see. I don't know how if I could put the link in there, but anyway, this video right here I feel is a good video to understanding the sophist, right? Now the sophist would be the G, right? The liars, right? So you have the sophists and you have the philosophers. Now, the philosophy of lying would be a sophist in my personal dialogue. So you could watch this and you can see the whole dialogue unfold, right? So it's the dialogue of Plato, but this person is doing the reading, right? Socrates, often hailed as the father of Western philosophy, was a figure whose ideas and methods have profoundly shaped the course of human thought. Right? Born in the 5th century BC in Athens, Greece, Socrates never wrote down his teachings, yet his philosophical inquiries led to groundwork for much of Western logic and moral philosophy. Right? So now this right here is another video that I've seen. It's 100 about two hours long. Now this is by Will Durant, right? You can just look this up, and it's just a philosophy. But mind you, this is according to him, right? So you can listen to this, and it'll give you great detail for you to actually, if you want to do deeper research, he's opening up this world for you, right? So I put that there up there for you. I mean, there's many videos up, but these are the ones that I felt did a masterful job in giving somebody a start on this, right? So Western philosophy refers to the philosophical thought and works of the Western world. Historically, the term refers to the philosophical thinking of Western culture, beginning in ancient Greece, philosophy in pre-Socratic. Now that's going to matter. We'll be touching on all of this. The word philosophy itself originated from the ancient Greek, right? Literally, love of wisdom. Ancient Greek, to love, right? Sophia, wisdom. So you see, so we got the Sophias inside there, right? Love of wisdom, right? So, right? See the love. And then we see wisdom, the Sophias. So now that we see this this God being constructed and made, right? Right. And so a lot of times when people, even when they use the definitions of a Bible, right, they'll see the first one or the second one and they'll just be content with these two definitions. One being, right, in Christianity and other monolithic religions, the creator and ruler of the universe and source of all moral authority and supreme being. So to me, when I go back to double talk and double speech, this is what I'm referring to, right? And again, in certain other religions, a superhuman being or spirit worshipped as having power over nature or human fortunes, a deity, a moon god, right? So again, we have this this mystical way of seeing it, an image, idol, or animal, or other objects worshipped as divine or symbolizing a god, right? So we can use this one and right graven image icon. So we can use this one, but as we go down, right, where we go, used as a controversial personification of faith. He dialed the number and the gods relenting got through at once, right? But no, let's go to 3, right? Because this one is important. Adored, admired, or influential person. He has little time for the fashion of victims for whom he is a god, a thing according to supreme importance, right? Appropriated to the gods. Don't make money your god. So you see, this is where we will find the true God in the three. So it's buried under. So first is giving you this thought in your mind, right, that you have already been given and you're going to automatically associate with and not usually do further investigation. And why would you label this adorned, admired? And so we seen with Caesar, right, he was adorned and admired and how they made him a deified image, right? And so that's the God we will be dealing with, right? Theory of form, right? This is Plato, right? Creation, I call this the creation of Jesus, right? The theory of form, theory of ideas, Platonic idealism, or Platonic realism is a philosophical theory of metaphysics attributed to the classical Greek philosopher Plato. The theory suggests that the physical world is not as real or true as ideas, which are some or timeless, absolute, and unchangeable, right? So that matters, with his approach to this. Ideas, according to this theory, controversially capitalized and translated as ideas of form, are the non-physical essence of all things, in which objects and matters in the physical world are merely imitations. Plato speaks of these entities only through the characters, primarily Socrates, of his dialogues, who sometimes suggest that these forms are the only objects of study that can provide knowledge. The theory itself is contested from within Plato's dialogues, and it is generally point of controversy in philosophy. Nonetheless, the theory is considered to be a classical solution to the problem of the universals, right? So, we're gonna see other people placed, and remember we saying Jesus is just a symbol, right? And so we can find other people and other actions within this symbol or symbolism, right? 18 years, Plato to Jesus. Many attempts have been made to fill in the missing 18 years when Jesus disappeared from the scripture. This has led to stories of him having traveled as far flung places such as India to study the Eastern mystics, Persia, and also tales of having visited North America, Eastern mystics, right? And Persia. That's going to make a big deal because we hear a lot of the woke community, especially the Egyptologists, tell you that the Bible has taken from Egypt. Now, I'm not saying it will be proven that there are things that came out of it that are Egyptian, but majority of what you see is through the Persians, the Babylonians, that system. We will be, proved. That's why I don't really get into debates with Egyptologists, because if they don't know, philosophy, they're having a total different conversation than me, right? How long did Plato travel? Right, so we're taking this. Remember, we looked at Jesus to Julius Caesar. Now let's look at Jesus to like Plato and Socrates. Right. Following Socrates for suicide, Plato spent 12 years traveling in southern Italy, Sicily, and Egypt, studying with other philosophers, including followers of mythical mathematics, Pythagoras, including Theodorus of Sirius, Cyrene, creator of the spiral of Theodius, or the Pythagorean spiral, right? And others, these are people that you are gonna want to read and study and understand this process, right? This process on how you got there. But as you see, it says, right, I want to point out Italy and Sicily, right? Especially Sicily, that's going to play a part later in understanding the Sophists in Egypt, right? As far as remember what we said about getting getting information from Egypt. Yes, he went in there, he had conversations. We'll be getting deeper into this. And so he learned the philosophy, and that part we can definitely say, at least I'm convinced, you know um um allowed him to crack the code. The Egyptians gave him, allowing him to be a student, should we say, allowed him to crack the code, right? And now, so let's look at these Jewish philosophers. Since we understand, we're talking about religion, we understand Judaism, right? And now we're into the philosophy building this God, right? This system, right? Let's look at some of the people who happen to be Jewish. Right, we got Karl Marx, and that's for present. We'll be covering that, right? But then we got who we got here? Plato, who we got there? Emmanuel Kant. He's gonna play a part, Kant, in the satanic systems and all of that. Aristotle, right? And Socrates, yes, right? David Humes, he's another one that we're gonna be, studying as far as understanding the system that we are in today, right? Any that's not highlighted, these are all your founders of the satanic system, right? The new system. Right. So, so we see those. We will be covering a lot of these people. I didn't highlight them again. Right. Okay. So now we go into Reform and Reconstructionist Judaism affirms belief in the afterlife, right? Though they downplay the theological implications in favor of the here and now as opposed to a reward and punishment. So, as you can see, they emphasize getting it done now. Anything that you need to do, get it done now. While we're being promoted that there is something in an afterlife. So that makes you the sheep, the cattle, because now they're allowed to use you because you're thinking a hereafter that they created for you, right? And they're not following because they believe in the here and now, opposed to award and punishment in the afterlife, right? So we can see that. You can look this up again, right? Look this up and go study this information. Jewish philosophy does not self-identify as a religion, but as a form of intellectual life within the Jewish religion. Jewish philosophy is the pursuit of speculative knowledge undertaken from the perspective of Jewish religion in reference to Jewish concerns or in relation to canonological Jewish texts, right? Philosophy of Judaism, right? So you understand we're dealing with a philosophy that is, I guess, transformed into what we know as religions. Right? So let's go into this trick, right? Because that's a trick. This is all trick knowledge, right? So, in order to understand the trick knowledge, we have to understand, I guess, magic, right? The term magic etymologically derives from the Greek word magia, right? The ancient in ancient times, Greeks and Persians had been at war for centuries, and the Persian priests called Magosh in Persian came to be known as Mogi Magoi in Greek. Ritual acts of Persian priests came to be known as magia and then magica, which eventually came to mean any foreign, unorthodox, or illegitimate ritual practice. To the general public, successful acts of illusions could be perceived as if they were similar to a feat of magic supposed to have been able to be performed by the ancient magi, right? So we understand, there's key parts in that, right? The ritual parts, right? Pay attention to what it is saying, right? War. Remember, they was at war for centuries. So, they've been studying their opponent. So when we say about, where did they get it from, right? They got it from the Persians, not the Greeks. I mean the Egyptians, right? The performance of tricks of illusions or magical illusions and the apparent workings and effects of such acts have been often referred to as magic, a particularly as magic tricks. Right? Let me put my book up here real quick. Pardon me. I've been um let me tell you, check out my book. Well, I got two books. I got my other book right here. Hold on. So this is, pardon me, this is Freemasonry and Yanni Worship, the second killing of Jesus. This is also available on Amazon Books, just like Street Skelzy Knock 'em Out the Box. Now, this is a historical book on how they made Jesus, right? Now, this book right here that you see, pardon me, this book right here is actually a novel. It's a crime novel about two brothers on opposite sides of the law. One is a police officer, one is a rough, and they must team up to find their father's killer or killers before the police get to them, the ones working on the case. And so this is about that, right? This is my Juice One Alive, right? I can leave that up there for a while, right? So we understand these magic tricks, right? One of the earliest known books to explain magic secrets, The Discoveries of Witchcraft, was published in 1584. It was created by Ronald Scott to stop people from being killed for witchcraft. During the 7th century, many books were published that described magic tricks. Until the 18th century, magic shows were a common source of entertainment at fairs, right? The father of modern entertainment magic is Jean Eugene Robert Houdin, who had a magic theater in Paris in 1845, right? John Henry Anderson was a pioneer of the same tradition in London in the 1840s. Towards the end of the 19th century, large magic shows, primarily staged at big theater venues, became the norm, right? As a form of entertainment, magic easily moved from theatrical venues to television magic specials. So let's check out these different type of magics, right? So we got classical magic. Classical magic is a style of magic that conveys feelings of elegance and skill akin to prominent magicians of the 19th and 20th century, right? So as we can see, right, what was that when we say white magic and black magic, we're talking about a magic or a promotion that makes the people feel good. Or we got black magic where you see today where it's based on causing the people to be at odds, to fuss and fight, strife, and these type of things. So that would be considered black magic, right? So then we got camera magic or video magic, is a magic that is aimed at viewers watching broadcast or recording. It includes tricks based on restricting viewers' angles of cameras and clever editing. Camera magic often features paid extras posing as spectators who may even be assisting in the performance. Camera magic can be done live, such as Darren Brown's lottery prediction. Famous examples of camera magic included David Copperfield's floating over the Grand Canyon and many of Chris Angle's illusions, right? So the main part is I wanted to point out is paid extras posing as spectators may even be assisting in the performance. We'll be covered. I did a show on shields, right? Hopefully, I'll still be able to. Cause I think it's like only 5 I can tag. So shields, I'll put up in there. And so this is how this works. This magic trick works, right? And so this same system of belief and wow and awe has been discovered to move people in many different areas. So they took this trick and they took it out of the parlor and they brought it to the people. Right now, this is not the first time. So the satanic system, they just rediscovered it, and we'll be getting into that as well. Right, so you got close-up magic. Close-up magic or table magic is performed with audiences close to the magician, sometimes even one-on-one. It usually makes use of everyday items as props, such as cards, see card manipulation, coins, see coin magic, and seemingly impromptuous effects. I used to do magic, so I know. This may be called table magic, particularly when performed at dinner entertainment. Ricky Jay, Marty, and Lee Asher, following the tradition of right and Max, are considered among the foremost practitioners of close up magic. Right. Then you got mentalism. Mentalism creates the impression in the mind of the audience that the performers possesses special power to read thoughts, predict events, control others' minds, and similar feats. Right? It can be presented on stage in cabaret settings before small close up groups and even for one spectator. Well known mentalists in the past and present include Alexander the Zinc. These are some of the people that you can look up. Let me make sure you see all of the names there. Right? Street magic. Street magic is a form of street performing or busking that employs a hybrid of stage magic, platform, or close up magic, usually performed in the round or surrounded by an audience. Notable modern street magic performers include, right, Ngazo. Since the first David Blaine TV special, Street Magic aired in 1997. The term street magic has also come to describe a style of what? Guerrilla performance in which the magician approaches and performs for unsuspecting members of the public on the streets. Unlike traditional magic, this style is almost purely designed for TV and gains its impact from the wild reaction of the public. Magicians of this type include David Blaine and Cyril Takayama, right? So we got online magic tricks were designed to function on a computer screen. The computer screens afford ways to incorporate magic from the magician's wand to the computer mouse. The use of computing technologies to perform can be traced back to a 1984 presentation by David Copperfield, who uses a Commodore 64 to create a magic show for his audience. More recently, visual performers have been experimenting with captivating digital animation and illusions that blur the lines between magic tricks and reality. In some cases, the computer essentially replaces the online magician, right? In a 2008 TD talk, Penn Gitetti discusses how technology will continue to play a role in magic by influencing media and communication. According to Penn, magicians continue to innovate in not only digital communication but also live performance that utilizes digitalized effects. Right? The 2020 COVID-19 lockdown ushered onto the world stage a surge of online magic shows. These shows are performed via video conferencing platforms such as Zoom. Right? Some online magic tricks recreate traditional card tricks and require users' participation, while others, like Plato's Cursed Triangle, is based on mathematical geometrical and or optical illusions. Right? One such online magic trick crystal ball becomes a viral phenomenon that fooled so many computer users to believing that their computer had supernatural powers that fact checker website Snoop dedicated a page to debunking the trick, right? These apparently irre- irreconcilable differences of opinions have led to some conflict among performers. Some, for example, more than 30 years after the illusionist made his first appearance on television in 1970, an exhibit in to exhibit his self-proclaiming physics ability to bend spoons, his actions still provoke controversy among some magic performers because he claimed did he did that what he did was not an illusion. On the other hand, because bent and continue to bend spoons within a performance context and has lectured at several magic conventions, the Dunninger quote may said to apply. Right. In 2016, self-proclaimed physics and amazing Kurskin was was barred from sending fraudulent letters to solicit money from elders. This settlement ended these efforts to cheat Iowa's most vulnerable people, stated Attorney General Tom Miller. The letters were shamelessly predatory and manipulative, variously promising riches, protection from ill health, and even personal friendships to each recipient, all to get the victims to send money. Less fraught with controversy, however, may be the use of this deceptive practices by those who employ stage magic techniques for personal gain outside venues of magic performances. So this is where we get into Freemasonry, right? And this magic, we'll call it more closer to mentalism, right? For right now. Fraudulent mediums have long capitalized on the popular belief in paranormal phenomena to prey on bereaved for financial gain. From the 1840s to the 1920s, including during the greatest popularity of the spiritualism religious movement, as well as a public interest in sinis. A number of fraudulent mediums use stage magic methods to perform illusions such as table knocking, slate writing, and telekinetics efforts, which they attributed to the actions of ghosts or other spirits. Right? So we can see how this magic is, used to manipulate the masses because it comes in many forms. The great Espelagius and illusionist Harry Houdini devoted much of his time to exposing such fraudulent operators. Gotta respect him. Magician James Reed, magic duo Penn and Teller, and the mentalist Darren Brown have also devoted much time to investigating and debunking paranormal, occult, and supernatural claims. Fraudulent faith healers have also been shown to employ sleight of hand to give the appearance of removing chicken giblets tumors from patients' abdomen. Right, so you see how the system of belief, because that's all it really is, and the charlatan who will use your gullible um outlook on things to profit off of you. Right. And in 2016, self-proclaimed physic and amazing Karnak was okay. I read this barred sediment ending less fraud and controversy, however, may be the use of deceptive practices by those who employ stage magic techniques for personal gain outside the venue of magic performances. Right? What are they? Conmen and grifters. Too many use techniques of stage magics for fraudulent goals. Cheating at card games is an obvious example and is not surprising one. One of the most respected textbooks on card techniques or magicians, the expert at a card table, right, by Andreas, was, let me see here. Um, was primarily written as an instruction manual for card sharps. Right, expert card table was primarily written as an instruction manual for card sharps. The card tricks known as Find a Lady or Three Card Money is an old favorite of street hustlers, right? Who lure the victims into betting on what seems like a simple proposition to identify after a seemingly easy to trick mixing sequence, which one of the three face down cards is the queen. Another example is the shell game, in which a P is hidden under one of the three walnut shells, then shuffled around the table or sidewalk so slowly as to make the piece position seemingly obvious. Although these are well known as frauds, people still lose money on them. A shell game ring was broken up in Los Angeles as recently as December 2009. Right? So as we can see, right, and we will be addressing that on how these two systems, the shell game with three card money, can be used without the cards, without the visual, right? And how this system is used to move the masses, right? Okay. Research and magic. Because of a secretive nature of magic, research can be a challenge. Many magic resources are privately held, and most libraries only have small populist collections of magicnia, right? However, organizations exist to band together independent collectors, writers, and researchers of magic history, including the Magic Collectors Association, which publishes a quarterly magazine and hosts an annual convention, and the Conjuring Arts Research Center, which publishes a monthly newsletter and a biannual magazine that offers its members use of a searchable database of rare books and periodicals. right? So then we remember when they was talking about the Cineas, right? I know I'm saying the Cineas. I know I'm saying it wrong. Anyway, theoretical Cineas, similarly spiritualistic or mediumistic phenomenon for theatrical effect. This genre of stage magic has been misused at times by charlatans, depending on depending to pretending to actually be in contact with spirits or supernatural forces. For this reason, some well known magicians, such as James Randi, aka the Amazing Randys, have made it their goal to debunk such paranormal phenomena and illustrate that any such effect may be achieved by natural or human means. Randy was the foremost skeptic in this regard in the United States. Thank you, Randy. We appreciate you. Right? Global magic. No, gospel magic. Gospel magic uses magic to characterize and evangelize. Gospel magic was first used by St. John Bosco to interest children in the 19th century Turin, Italy, to come back to school, accept the assistance, and to attend church. The Jewish equivalent is termed Torah magic, right? So we understand that religion itself is a magic trick, right? Philosophy emerged in ancient Greece in the 6th century BCE. The pre Socratic era lasted about 2 centuries, during which the expanding Persian Achaemenid Empire, which stretched to the west, while the Greeks were advancing in trades and sea routes, reaching Cyprus and Syria. The first pre-Socratics lived in Ionia, on the western coast of Anatolia. Persians conquered the town of Iona in 540 BCE. The Persian tyrants and then ruled them. The Greeks revolted in 499 BCE, but ultimately were defeated in 494 BCE. Slowly but steadily, what the fuck, man? Right? The Greeks, slowly but steadily, Athens became the philosophical center of Greece in the middle of the 5th century. Athens was entering its classical era with philosophy such as Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, but the impact on the pre-Socratics continued, right? Several factors contributed to the birth of pre-Socratic philosophy in ancient Greece. Ionian towns, especially, right, had close trade relations with who? Egypt and Mesopotamian cultures, right? Mesopotamian cultures. An observation about their natural world that different from those of the Greeks. Apart from technical skills and cultural influence, the paramount significance was that the Greeks acquired an alphabet in 800 BCE, and we will be addressing that too. Another factor was the easy and frequency of intra Greek travel, which led to the blending and comparison of ideas. During the 6th century BCE, various philosophers and other thinkers moved easily around Greece, especially visiting pan Hellenistic festivals. While long distance communication was difficult, ancient times, persons, philosophers, and books moved through other parts of Greece, right? Peninsula, the and islands and coastal areas in southern Italy. So this was how they was able to not only infiltrate and study their opponent, but also form a system of their own. Right, by studying that system, they formed their own system and went about and did what they did to conquer. Right, the democratic political system of independent Palladius also contributed to the rise of philosophy. Most Greek towns were not ruled by aristocrats or priests, allowing citizens to question freely a wide range of issues, right? Flourished and became wealthy, especially which was a center of trade and production during the early phases of pre-Socratic philosophy. Trade of grain, oil, wine, and other commodities among each palace and colonies meant these towns were not isolated, but embedded, and economically dependent on a complex and changeable web of trade routes. Right? Greek mythology also influenced the birth of philosophy. The philosophers' ideas were, to a certain extent, answer to questions that were subtle present in the works of Homer and Hesiod, right? The pre-Socratic arose from the world dominated by myths, sacred places, and local deities, right? So pay attention to that. The pre-Socratic arose from a world dominated by myths, sacred places, and local deities. The works of the epic poets such as Homer, Hesiod, and others reflected this environment. They are considered predecessors of the pre-Socratic since they seek to address the origins of the world. To organize traditional folklore and legends systematically. Greek popular religions contained many features of the religions of neighboring citizens, such as the Egyptians, Mesopotamians, and Hittites. Right? Greek popular religion contained many features of the religions of neighboring citizens, such as Egyptians, Mesopotamians, and Hittites. The Hittites we called the Jews, right? The first pre-Socratic philosophers also traveled extensively to other lands, meaning that the pre-Socratic thought had roots abroad as well as domestically. So we can see, right, that when we hear these claims, that they got it from the Egyptians. We can't deny. They'll admit it, right? They'll also admit it. They get it from the Mesopotamians and they got it from the Hittites, right? And so this system, right, these philosophies was gathered up once they conquered, right, and brought about Jesus, so they could use these other philosophies to put those people under this train of thought, right? So you have a philosophy or philosophies that was out there. They swallowed up those by putting them under this system, which we would call Christianity, right? Homer, in his two epic poems, not only personifies God and other natural phenomena, such as the night, but he hints at some views on the origin and nature of the world that came under scrutiny by the pre-Socratics. In his epic poem, Theogony, literally meaning the birth of gods. And apart from the solid mythical structure, one can notice an attempt towards organizing beliefs using some form of rationalization. An example would be that night gives birth to death, sleep, and dreams, right? Transmigration of life, a belief of the Orphic, a religious cult organ originating from Thales, had affected the thoughts of the 5th century BCE. But the overall influence of their cosmology on philosophy is disputed, right? So we go transmigration of life and belief of the Orpheus, a religious cult originating from Thrace, had affected the thoughts of the 5th century BCE, right? Pherecydes, a poet, magician, pay attention again, and contemporary of Thales, in his books described a particular cosmology, asserting that 3 gods pre-existed, a step towards reality. So we see the 3 gods, right? And so we see how this progression takes place. So we'll see a list of pre-Socratic philosophers and when they flourished according to Catherine Osborne, right? This is her saying this. Philosophy flourished years. So we see the Tales, and he's the one who we could say brought in the 3, the 3 gods, the Trinity, right? And so we're starting from this philosophy of 585, right? And so we can see a lot of famous names here: Pythagoras, Xenophon, Heraclius, Xenon, Pythagoras, Gorgias, Demarcus. Then we got who? Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, right? So we can see how this system led down and basically groomed the people until you had a Julius Caesar, right? Okay, the most important feature of the pre-Socratic philosophy was the use of reasoning to explain the universe. The pre-Socratic philosophy shared the intentions that there was a single explanation that could explain both the plurality and the singularity of the whole. And that explanation would not be direct action of the gods. The pre-Socratic philosophers rejected traditional mythological explanations of the phenomena they saw around them. All right, where we at? They saw around them for a more rational explanation. Initiating analytics and critical thought, right? Their efforts were directed at the investigation of the ultimate bias and essential nature of the external world. Many sought the material principles, archie, right? Arch of things and the method of their origin and disappearance. They emphasized the rational unity of things and rejected supernatural explanations, seeking natural principles at work in the world in human society. The pre-Socratic saw the world as a cosmos, an ordered arrangement that could be understood via rational inquiry. In their efforts to make sense of these cosmos, they coined new terms and concepts such as rhythm, symmetry, analogically, deductionism, reductionism, mathematicians of nature, and others. An important term that is met in the thought of several pre-Socratic philosophers is arche. Depending on the context, it can take various relating forms. It could mean the beginning or origin with the undertone that there is an effect on the things to follow. Also, it might mean a principle or cause, especially an Aristotelian tradition. Right? A common feature of the pre Socratics is the absence of explanation and order, empiricism, and experimentation in order to provide their theories. This may have been because the lack of instruments or because of the tendency to view the world as a unity, undeconstructible. So it would be impossible for an external eye to observe tiny fractions of nature under experimental control. Right? So according to Jonathan Baines, a professor of ancient philosophy, pre-Socratic philosophy exhibited three significant features. They were eternal, systematic, and economical. So as you see in the beginning, when I said economics and I said history, and it was history, economics, and religion, right? So we have these systematic, internal, right? And then we have systematic, which is religion, and then we got economics. Internal meaning they try to explain the world with characteristics found within this world. Systematic because they try to utilize their findings. Economical because they try to invoke only a few new terms. Based on these features, they've reached their most significant achievement. They changed the course of human thought from myth to philosophy and science. Right? So we can't be mad at them breaking away from the lie. Right. So we would at one point we probably could say that Christianity is the truth, right? It's designed like Islam to prevent the liar from profiting and dwelling. So Christianity, in that sense, when you say it's the truth, is based on getting to the truth, and then that was buried by the liar, taking over that system. And we can see today with the Pope, saying, same-sex marriages and stuff like that. So we could see the takeover. Right, we can see it in real time. We can see the takeover. So we don't have to say, oh, whether is there any Christians? You might in your heart believe you are, but that system has been taken over. I want to say since the let's say the 1800s. It's been under attack since the 1300s, right? The 1600s, they laid the foundation to straight up go against them. And so by the 1800s, I would say, yes, it was a complete takeover. Um, the priest, and I would say probably even before then, right? Philosophy and science, the pre-Socratic were not atheists, right? However, they minimize the extent of God's involvement in natural phenomena such as thunder and total elements of the gods from the natural world. So as we can see this connection, just like the Jews, right? They, this belief in God thing was up for debate, right? Pre-Socratic philosophy encompasses the first of three phases of ancient Greek philosophy, which span around 1,000 years. So this system that not only did they take down the old Babylonian system, but the construction of Judaism, not Judaism, Christianity was roughly 1,000 years, right? The pre-Socratic phase itself is divided into three phases. The first phase is the pre-Socratic philosophy, mainly the Milesians, the Xenophones, and the Heraclitites consisted of rejecting traditional cosmology and attempting to explain nature based on empirical observation and interpretation. The second phase of that is the elastic, right? So we can come down here. Elastic resisted the idea that change or motion can happen. Based on their radical monism, they believed that only one substance existed and forms cosmos. The ascetics were also monist, believing that only one thing existed and everything else is just transformation of it, right? The third phase is the post-elastic, mainly, right, and Demetrius, whatever, right? Opposed from elastic teachings and returning to naturalism of the Malus, right? The pre-Socratics were succeeded by the second phase of ancient philosophy, where the philosophical movement of Platoism, Synchronism, right, Aristotelianism, like these different academic skepticism and Stoicism rose to prominence until 100 BC. So you see the first phase, right? Then you see the second phase, which would be Plato and all of them. And then the third phase, philosophers study their predecessors. So they studied what their teachers, their first students and teachers learned and taught, and then narrowed that down to what we see today. Right. So this is I'm showing you the process on how they did it. Right. Knowledge. Right. The mythologian Homer, and along with other poets, right? Notice how poetry, centuries before the pre-Socratic thought that the true knowledge was exclusive to the divine. But starting with Xenophones, the pre-Socratic moved towards a more natural approach to knowledge, right? The pre-Socratics sought a method to understand the cosmos while being aware that there is a limit to human knowledge. While Pythagoras and Empedocles linked their self-proclaimed wisdom to their divinely inspired status, they tried to teach or urge mortals to seek the truth about the natural realm. Pythagoras, by means of mathematics and geometry and by exposure of experience, Xenophones thought that human knowledge was merely an opinion that cannot be validated or proven to be true. According to Jonathan Wayne, Xenophones set the outline of the nature of knowledge, right? And Parmenides stress the capability of humans to understand how things stand in nature through direct observation, inquiry, and reflection, right? So we can't argue with the system that was set up. We can argue with the system that has been put in place to put you black in how do you say it, a sleep spell, right? So you have one was to wake you up from belief, right? So we have to respect that system, but that system has been taken out, and we are heading back into a system of belief and not a system of knowing, right? The pre-Socratic thought contributed to the demythologization of the Greek popular religion. The narrative of their thought contributed to the shifting the course of ancient Greek philosophy and religion away from the realm of divinity, and even paved the way for theological explanations, right? They attacked the traditional representation of God that Homer and had established and put Greek popular religion under scrutiny, initiating the schism between natural philosophy and theology, right? The pre-Socratic philosophers did not have atheistic belief, but it should be kept in mind that being an atheist those days was not without social or legal danger. Right, so we have to keep that in perspective. That now I can offer an opinion that yes, these were all atheists, but I still, just give them, what do you say? Sake of argument, right? That okay, they weren't atheists, right? In totality, but I will say they were, right? Despite that, arguments rejecting deities were not barred from the public sphere, which can be seen in Pythagoras' questions on the gods. About the gods, I am able to know neither that they exist nor that they do not exist, right? So this was his approach, all right? And he knew not, to be honest. They knew that they was forming a new system. The theoretical thought starts with the Malthusian philosophy. It is evident in Archimedean ideas of the Aspian steering everything, which had other abilities usually attributed to Zeus. Later, the Xenophones developed a critique of the gods, right? The Xenophones set three preconditions of God. He had to be all good, immortal, and not resembling humans in appearance, which had a major impact on Western religious thought. thought. So we see how philosophy has always structured what you think and what you deem as a reality, right? The theologians thought permades is not entirely certain, but it is generally accepted, right, that they believed in some kind of divinity, right? The Pelagians and Epicodes and Docels believed in the transmigration of souls, right? Ex- Anaxozovios asserted that cosmic intelligence gives life to things. Diogenes of expanded on the line of thinking and might have constructed the first teleological argument about an argument. It would not be possible without intellection, for it so be divided up that it has the measure of all things, of winter and summer, and night and day, and rain and wind, and fair weather, and other things too. If one wishes to consider them, one would find disposed in the best possible way, right? While some pre Socratics were trying to find alternatives to divinity, others were setting the foundation of explaining the universe in terms of teleology and intelligent design by a divine force. Right? So how did this pre-Socratic affect medicine? Prior to the pre-Socratic, health and illness were thought to be governed by gods. Pre-Socratic philosophy and medicine advanced in parallel with the medicines as a part of philosophy and vice versa. It was Hippocrates, often hailed as the father of medicine, who separated but not completely the two domains. Physicians incorporated pre-Socratic philosophical ideas about nature of the world in their theoretical frameworks, blurring the borders between the two domains. An example of this study of implicity, which in popular religion was thought to be divine intervention to human life. But Hippocrates' school attributed it to nature, just as Millian's rationalism demytholized other natural phenomena such as earthquakes. The systematic study of anatomy, physiology, and illness led to the discovery of cause and effects relations in a more sophisticated terminology and understanding of the diseases that ultimately yielded rational science. Right? Magi definition. Right? Magi. Magi in Christian tradition is a notable where we at here? Notable pilgrims from the east who followed a miraculous guiding star to Bethlehem, where they paid homage to an infant Jesus as King of the Jews. And Western Christianity, right? Okay. I would like to say resolution is revolution. If you don't have a resolution, then you're not in a revolution. You're not fixing a problem, right? So Magi, singular, magos, Latin, magos, Greek, right? A priest, and Zoroastrianism, Zoroastrianism, right? And the earliest religion of Western Iranians, right? The earliest known use of the word magi is in the Trilingual inscriptions written by Darius the Great, also known as inscriptions, Old Persian texts predating the Hellenistic period, refers to a magus as a Zoroastric and presumably Zoroastrianist priest, right? Pervasive throughout the Eastern Mediterranean and Western Asia until late antiquity and beyond. Magus was influenced by and eventually displaced Greek ghosts, right? The older word for a practitioner of magic, with the meaning expanding to include astronomy, astrology, alchemy, and other forms of esoteric knowledge. This association was in turn a product of the Hellenistic fascination for Pseudo Zoroaster, who was perceived by the Greeks to be a Chaldean, right? Founder of the Magi and inventor of both astrology and magic. The meaning that still survives in the modern day words, magic and magician. The Gospel of Matthew, right, from the East, do homage to the Christian child, and the translated plural magi entered English from Latin in this context around 12,000 CE. This particular use is also commonly rendered in English as kings, right? So these kings, right, and more often in recent times as wise men. The singular magus appeared considerably late when it was borrowed from Old French, and that's in the late 14th century with the meaning magician, right? Hereditary Zionist priesthood was survived in India, in Iran. They were termed Herbad, Morbads, right? We're gonna get into the Moabs, right? Chief of the Maga. Hold on. Okay, the term only appears twice in Iran's text from before the 5th century BC, and only one of those can be dated with precision. The one's instance occurs in a trilogical Byzantine inscription of Darius the Great, in which can be dated to around 520 BC. And this trilogical text, certain rebels have Magian as an attribute, and the Old Persian portion as more, especially generally assumed to be a loan word from Medium. The meaning of the term in this context is uncertain, right? So, Iranian sources. The other instance appears in a text of the Avesta, right? A sacred literature of Zoroastrianism, right? in this instance, which is the younger Avestine portion of the term, appears in a hypex, right, meaning hostile to the Muga, where Muga does not, as was previously thought, mean Magus, but rather a member of the tribe, or refers to a particular social class in the Proto Iranian language, and then continues to do so in Avestan, right? An unrelated term, but previously assumed to be related, appears in the Old Gathic Avatar language text. This word, right, means possessing Magi, was one of the premise that Magi, Avestian Mega, and medium, i.e., Old Palestinian, right, Mughal, were coeval, and also that both these were cognated in verdict, right? While and the word seems to mean both the teaching of the Zoroast and the community that accepted the teaching. And it seems that Avestan Magi is related to there is no reason to suppose that the Western Iranian form Magus was exactly the same meaning as well. But it may be, however, that Avestan Mughal, which is not the same as Mega and Medina Magul, were the same word in origin, and common Iranian term, a member of a tribe having developed among the priests. Some examples of the use magi in Persian poetry are presented in the poem Hafez. There are two frequent terms used by him. First one is Pir-e Mogan, literally the old man of the Magi. The second one, right, literally the monastery of the Magi. So this magic, right, this trick on the brain, right? Magic, Greco-Roman sources. Classical Greek. The oldest surviving Greek references to the Magi from Greek, right, might be from 6th century BC. Hercules, right, who curses the Magi for their impious rites and rituals. A description of the rituals that Hercules refers to has not survived, and there is nothing to suggest that Heraclitus was referring to foreigners. Better preserved are the descriptions in the mid 15th century BC, right? Herodias, who in his portrayal of the Iranian expertise living in Asia Minor, used the term magi in two different senses. The first sense, right, speaks of the magi as one of the tribes, peoples of the Medes, right? The other sense, Hercules also uses the term magi to generally refer to secretal caste, but whose ethics origin is never again as much as mentioned, according to Robert Charles, right? And other accounts, we hear of magi not only in Persia, right? Perath, Beketar, Cosmia, Ares, Medea, and among the Sakas, but also in non Arabian lands like Sumeria, Ethiopia, and Egypt. So we see that this system went all the way even into Egypt and Ethiopia, right? And Sumeria. Their influence was also widespread throughout Asia Minor. It is therefore quite likely that the Sacerdotal Castle of the Magi was distinct from the Median tribes of the same name. In the as early as the 5th century BC, Greek Moguls had spawned, right? So they came up with their own thing. Spawned magia and magic to describe the activities of the magos. That is, it was his or her art in practice. But almost from the outset, the noun for these actions and the noun for the actions parted company. Therefore, magia, right, was used for what actually magi did, but for something related to the word magic in the modern sense, i.e., using supernatural means to achieve an effect of in the natural world, or the appearance of achieving these effects through trickery or sleight of hand, right? So this system, as you can see, is not new, but it was rediscovered, and we will be getting into that because this system was buried, right? So when the Christians came about and they did what they did, they actually buried this system, but it was rediscovered, and this is how we get to, and we'll be getting into that, right? How it was rediscovered and redistributed among the people, right? But almost from the so thereafter, Magias was used not for what actually Magi did, but for something related to the word magic in a modern sense, i.e., using supernatural means to achieve an effect. Oh, I read that. The early Greek texts typically have the projective meaning, which in turn influence the meaning of magos to denote a conjurer and a charlatan. Already in the mid 5th century BC, right, identified the Magi as interpreters of omens and dreams, right? Other Greek sources from before the Hellen, is very important that we pay attention, before the Hellenistic period, included, because that was, the women. Gentlemen soldiers, Xenophon, who had first-hand experience at the Persian again, Academid courts. In his early 4th century BCE Cyclopedia, Xenophon depicted the magicians as authorities for all religious matters, and images and imagines the magians to be responsible for the education of the emperor to be, right? So, these were the teachers and stuff like that. Remember when I said you had the G and the D and how they make the king, they make the O, right? So these teachers, right, teach them how to move in a certain way, right? A Nubian Numdian Platonist philosopher describes Magus to be considered as a sage and philosopher king based on Platonic notions. Right? Now we're going to the Roman period. Right? Once the Magi had been associated with magic, Greek magister, pardon me, got a call there. It was but a natural progression that the Greeks imagined the Zoroastrians would metamorphosis into a magician too. The first century elder names Zoroaster as the inventor of magic, right? But a principle of the division of labor appears to have spread Zoroaster most of the responsibility for introducing the dark arts to the Greeks and Roman world. Right? So let's mention that again. Pliny the Elder names Zoroaster as the inventor of magic, and this is in natural history, right? But a principle of the division of labor appears to have spread Zoroaster's most of the responsibility for introducing the dark arts to Greek and Roman world. That dubious honor went to another fabulous magus, Ostenes, to whom most of the pseudographical magical literature was attributed. For Pliny, this magic was a monstrous craft that gave the Greeks not only a lust for magic, but a downright madness for it. Right? So let's understand what we have just read. The Zoroastrians basically created this system of confusion, right? That's what he's saying, right? Zoroastrians were the inventors of magic, right? But a principle of the division of labor appears to have spread Zoroastrians most of the responsibility for introducing what? The dark arts, right? Dark arts to the Greeks and Roman world. The dubious honor went to another fabulous Mugus, right? This is the one who they saying really did it, right? To whom most of the pseudographic magical literature is attributed, right? And this magic was a monstrous craft, right? That gave the Greeks not only a lust for magic, but an outright madness for it. Right? Suppose that the Greek philosophers, among them Pythagoras, right, and Plato, traveled abroad and studied and returned to teach it. Right? So when we hearing them say that they got it from the Egyptians, according to this, they didn't. They got it from the Persians, right? That's who they got it from. Zoroaster, or rather what the Greeks suppose him to be, was for the Hellenistics the figurehead of the Magi, right? And the founder of the order, or what the Greeks considered to be an order. He was further projected as the author of a vast compendium of Zoroastrian pseudographia composed and the main and discredited the texts of rivals. See, so then we see this Sophist movement, because we will be getting deep into the Sophists, and this is all basically when we talk about the G, we will be exposing the Sophists, because this is all that is, right? Consider the Greeks, Zophius, composed of meaning discredit the text of rivals. The Greeks considered the best wisdom to be esoteric wisdom, and what better and more convenient authority than the distant, temporal, and geographical Zoroaster. The subject of these texts is the authenticity and which was rarely challenged ranged from treatises on natures to ones of necromancy. But the bulk of these texts dealt with astronomical speculation and magical lore. One factor for association and astrological was Uranus names, or rather, that the Greeks made of it. His name was identified at first with star worshiping, right? Star sacrificers. And with the Zo, even the living star, later an even more elaborate etymology evolved. Zoroaster died by the living Zo, flux Ro, of fire from the star Astrea, which he himself had invoked and given that the stars killed him in revenge for having been restrained by him. The second and more serious factor for the association with astrology was the notion that Zoroaster was a charlatan. An alternate Greek name for Zoroaster was Zaster, right? Which according to Benz and Comster derived from systematic forms of his name. The Sudas chapters, right, noted that the Babylonians learned their astrology from Zoroaster. I don't believe that. Decided to journey to Babylon and asked one of the Magi Zoroaster's disciplines and successors for their opinion. Right, so he went out there, decided to journey to Babylon to ask one of the Magi's Zoroaster's disciplines and successors, right? Tradition. Man, in the article, I'm trying to see. This should be it right here. So we got this last part to do. All right. Okay. The word magus, Greek, in its variant appears in both Old and New Testament. Ordinarily, this would translate magician to sorcerer in the sense of Illinist and fortune tellers. And this is how it's translated in all of the occurrences acts. You know, I realized I had passed the I had to pass a whole section. Let me finish this up. Ordinarily the word is translated magician or sorcerer. In this sense, the illusionist or fortune teller, and this is how it is translated in all its occurrences, Acts 13:6. except for the Gospel of Matthew, where, depending on translation, it is rendered wise men or left untranslated as magi, typically with an explanatory note, right? However, early church fathers such as Saint, right, did not make an exception for the gospel and translated the word in an ordinary sense, i.e., a magician. The Gospel of Matthew states that Magi visited the infant Jesus to do him homage shortly after his birth. The gospel described how magi from the east were notified of the birth of a king in Judea by the appearance of his star, as above and below, right? Remember what we said about Jesus, right? So this is the those who go out and spread this word, right? Who brought this to life, right? Appeared upon the stars. Upon their arrival to Jerusalem, they visit King Herod to determine the location of the king of the Jews' birthplace. Herod disturbed, told them that he had not heard of the child, but informed them of a prophecy that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. He then asked the Magi to inform him when they find the child so that he himself may also pay homage to the child. Guided by a star of Bethlehem, star again, the wise men again, right? The philosophers and the sophists, right? Where we at? Star Bethlehem. The wise men found the child Jesus in a house. They paid homage to him and presented him with gifts of gold and of frankincense and of myrrh. Right? In a dream, they were warned not to return to Herod. And therefore returned to their homes by taking another route. Since its compensation in the late first century, numerous apocalyptical stories have established the gospel's accounts, right? Implies that Herod learned from the wise men that that up to 2 years had passed since the birth, which is why all male children 2 years and younger were slaughtered. In addition to a more famous story of Simon Magus found in chapter 8, the book of Acts, it also describes rather another Magus who acted as an advisor in the island of Cyrus. He was a Jew named Bar Jesus, son of Jesus, or alternative, right? Okay. One of the non-canonical Christian sources, Infancy Gospel, provides in its third chapter a story of wise men of the East, which is very similar to much of the story of Matthew. This account cites Zoroaster as a source of the prophecy that motivated the wise men to seek the infant Jesus. You see this? So they joined up with that team to spread this, right? So then we end off, let me see, it should be, I'm going to end off with the Jewish tradition. The Indian thing ain't that important, right? In the Talmud, instance of dialogue between the Jewish sages and various magi are recorded. The Talmud depicted the Magi as sources and in several descriptions they are negatively described as obstructing Jewish religion and practices. Several references including sages criticizing practices performed by various magi. One instance is a description of a Zoroastrian priest exhuming corpses for their burial practice, which directly interfered with the Jewish burial rites. Another instance is a sage forbidding learning from the Magi. Right? And then we got Islam. In Arabic, magicians, Magius, is a term for Zoroastrians. The term is mentioned in the Quran and Surah 22, verse 17, where the magicians are mentioned alongside the Jews, the Syrian, and the Christian in a list of religions who will be judged on the day of resurrection. See, so the magicians are a religion too, right? So in the 1980s, Saddam Hussein Ba'ath Party used the term Majus during the Iran-Iraq War, and a generalization of all modern day Iranians by referring to the Iranians in these documents as Majus. The secretary implied that the Iranians were not sincere Muslims, but rather covertly practiced their pre-Islamic belief. Thus, in their eyes, Iraq's wars took on the dimensions where we at convert Iran by referring documents security were sincere Muslims, but rather than converting practice in the pre-Islamic in the eyes of war, took on the dimensions of not only a struggle for Arab nationalism, but also a campaign in the name of Islam. Right? So let me see, because I don't think I did this part up here. Right? So this here. Let me just go through this. I'm looking for some scripture verses that I put inside here. I didn't, for some reason, I don't see it. Right? Let me just go inside here real quick. If not, we will be ending this show. All right. Yeah, I don't see it. I don't even know why it's not up in here. Let me see some. All right. Files. Let me see some here. Forgive me. I have no idea why is this not in there. I know I put it in there. Yeah, all of this stuff is not in there. I don't know why. But this. All right, so I just do that one in the next show. I mean, cause it's just some showing you, because from this point on, everything we'll be doing is dealing with the sophists. All right. We'll be dealing with the G. We'll be revealing the secret system. All right. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't see it nowhere in here. How the hell did that happen? I really do not know. All right. So nonetheless, people, we out. Don't forget, check out my book, right? Freemasonry and Yanni Worship, the second killing of Jesus. We also have Street Skillsy Knock 'Em Out the Box, which is a novel about two brothers on opposite sides of the law who must team up in order to find their father's killer or killers, right? I'll be doing a whole commercial on that later. But anyway, until next time, peace and love.